Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that this month I've opened 10 spots for my Amazon Q&A sessions. These are a focused 60-minute call where you can bring your biggest Amazon challenges and leave with clear answers, or we can even use them for Amazon training. The calls cost £149 and you can get a spot through the link in the show notes. Welcome to the Bring Your Product Idea to Life podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're getting started selling products or if you'd like to create your own product to sell. I'm Vicky Weinberg, a product creation coach and Amazon expert. Every week, I share friendly, practical advice as well as inspirational stories from small businesses. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Bring Your Product Idea to Life. This is going to be another fairly short episode. You might notice the episodes are getting shorter as we get more into November, and it's because I know that you're going to be super busy, and I'm sure you don't have unlimited time to be listening to podcasts at the moment. So I'm going to keep this brief, but also, as always, really informative and practical as well. So today I wanted to talk about what to do if you've been selling on Amazon for a while and you're unsure what to focus on next, or maybe you're starting to think about 2026 and you're like, how much of a part of my strategy will Amazon be? And if I do something, what will I focus on? Maybe you've been on Amazon for a while and you've kind of just let it run. You haven't been actively doing anything and you're just thinking, what could I do? What should I do to increase my sales? I'm going to give you now a couple of options and things to think about. Because I know, especially if you've been selling for a while, it's easy to feel a bit stuck. It's easy to feel that there are so many things you could be doing. It's also easy to focus on other areas of your business, particularly if those need more of your time and attention. If Amazon's going well, if things are ticking over, it's really easy to kind of just let it run in the background. I will also say there's definitely no one size fits all strategy, and the next steps for you will depend on what your goals are. I'm just going to give you some options of things that you might want to think about doing when it comes to planning 2026. I don't know why I couldn't say 2026 then, because you're certainly not going to be wanting to do much now. I understand that now it's about gearing up. We're well in the Christmas shopping season. It's not the time to be making big changes to your Amazon. I personally am predicting December to be a time for me and my clients of mainly planning, because by December all of your stock should be in Amazon already. If you're using FBA, if you're not, you should have all your stock. However you're planning to sell, your listings should all be ready, because launching on Amazon in 2020 in December any year is not a great idea, and it's also not really the time you want to be making big changes because there'll be so many other things you can do. But let's look ahead, because we're almost at the new year. I can't quite believe I'm saying that. So let's talk about some of the things that you could be doing. And I'll also say that if you are relatively new to Amazon, something to think about here as well is, in terms of what you might do next, is think about why you're on Amazon in the first place. And I say this particularly for newer sellers, because when you start on Amazon, I think you have to make a decision as to whether Amazon is going to be a channel you're really looking to grow, whether you're getting on Amazon because you want to be the first in your category. Maybe you want to be the first seller of your particular product because you're worried maybe that resellers might start getting on there. Maybe it's because you know that your customers are already looking for you on Amazon, so you want to make sure they can find you. Or maybe you're using Amazon as a way of reaching new customers. So for example, you're using Amazon as a way for customers to discover you, but ultimately you kind of like them to come over and buy on your website at some point. So in terms of what you do, the reasons why you're on Amazon in the first place is something to think about. So here's a few things that you can think about doing to improve, scale, just change up, just see different results on Amazon for next year. First thing I'll say though is that before you do anything, whether that's scaling up, whether that's adding new products, whether that's going on new marketplaces, we're going to talk about all of these things, make sure your current product listings are really well optimized. That always has to be the priority. That's, for me, is always the basis. And make sure that what you have on Amazon now is as good as it can possibly be. So things you might need to think about are, when did you last look at your listing text? If you haven't looked at your listing text for a while, you might want to give it a refresh. You might want to do some keyword research and just make sure all the keywords you're using are still the correct ones. They're still going to drive traffic to your listing. You might want to look at your images and think if they need a refresh. You might want to look at your A+ content, particularly if you created that a long time ago, when the only really option was to use these really old-fashioned templates where you had to drop text and images into different boxes. If that's the kind of A+ content that you've got, perhaps you might want to upgrade your A+ content. I've spoken before, the way I really like to do it is to create images and sort of stack them so they look really cohesive. You can use your own colours, your own fonts. That can look really, really nice. That's definitely something to consider. I would also have a look at your brand store. If you don't have a brand store, then creating one, particularly if you have one product, maybe it's still good to have, but if you have any more than one product, I definitely think that you need to have a store. It's a great place for people to see all of your products in one go. You can add some information about you, the brand, whatever it is you want to communicate to people. I think that's definitely something to put on your list if you haven't done already. And with your A+ content, again, comparison tables. If you're selling more than one product, they're a really great way of customers seeing your range. And I've said this before, but please don't use them just to talk about the different colours your product comes in or the different sizes, unless, of course, you only sell one product in different colour and sizes. But if you sell a range of products, your comparison table is a really nice way to get people to know all the things that you sell. If you don't have videos on your listing and you have some great videos, that's another thing that you could think about adding. Let's say you're a small business, but you don't have the small business badge. I would definitely raise a case and get that. Let's say you're an energy efficient brand and you don't have that listed. I would definitely go and get that badge. So think about the small things you can do to enhance your existing listings before you do anything else. Once you've done that, some of the other things you could think about are your advertising. So let's say you've been running ads on Amazon for a while, but you haven't maybe seen the results that you want. If you've been setting and forgetting, by the way, first thing to do is actually review your ads, see how well they're doing, see if you can make any tweaks. You might also want to try some different types of ads. So if you were wanting to do one thing this year, in fact, I spoke about this a few weeks ago and we're possibly getting too late now, is you might want to add Christmas imagery to your listings. You might want to do a Christmas or gifting based ad. So that is one of the very few things I'd say is worth doing now if you wanted to. But if not, and we're thinking about 2026, you might want to try a different advertising strategy. January and February, lots of sellers will turn off their ads. Ads are going to get more expensive as we're recording now because we're going into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, gifting season, all of that. Ads are going to get a bit more expensive. They generally get a bit cheaper earlier in the year because lots of people turn them off. So for you, that could be a good opportunity to try something different, whether that's a sponsored brands ad, whether that's a display ad, whatever that might be. So that's definitely something you could look at. You could also look at your fulfillment. So, for example, if you're currently only offering FBM, you might decide that next year is an opportunity to trial FBA, maybe on just one of your best-selling products, and just see what that does for sales. Equally, it might be that you've been using FBA and you're deciding it doesn't work for you and you think you're going to try switching to FBM. I'm actually doing that work for a client right now. They had been selling on FBA, but for various reasons, mainly to do with damages, they've decided that they're going to switch to FBM and see how that works out. So that's definitely something else that you can think about. There might be products that you don't have listed on Amazon yet, and maybe you've been considering it, maybe you've been holding back. Adding new product lines can be a really nice thing you can do. Maybe you can add some bundles. I've mentioned virtual bundles a few weeks ago, which is where you can list a product, which is a bundle of existing products that you're already selling on Amazon, and Amazon will package them as a bundle and send to customers, something they're doing in the US. So should be coming to the UK soon. They did say 2025, but I haven't seen any updates on this, but let's fingers crossed that'll come soon, because I think that's a really, really good feature. But it might be that you want to bundle together existing products for Amazon. It might be that you want to think about offering some kind of deal. So for example, if you have products that go well together, you might offer some sort of deal where you say, if you buy 2 products, you get 5% off. If you buy 3, you get 10% off, and have that advertised in your listings as a way of encouraging multi-buys. So promotions like that can be great for doing that. I think anything to share with customers that you have more than the one product they happen to be looking at right now is always really, really key. Another thing you might want to think about is expanding to new marketplaces. So whether that's one of the EU marketplaces or whether that's the US, of course, you need to be aware of tax implications, of tariffs, of the VAT implications, depending where you're holding stock. So that is obviously, that's something not to decide to do on a whim, because there's a lot to consider. If you are looking to expand to Europe and you're listing and you're selling in the UK now, That's one of the slightly more straightforward options, and there are different ways you can do that. Something to know, actually, first of all, is that you need to make sure you get your listings translated for the language of the country you're going to set into. Amazon will auto translate for you, but how good those translations are, don't know. But let's say you're going to be selling, you decide actually Germany would be a good market for you. I have a client who expanded to Germany, which we'll talk about a little bit later when I give you some examples of things that my clients have done this year. And you have a couple of different fulfillment options. So you can fulfill your listings in Germany yourself. So maybe you are going to ship from your own warehouse in the UK to Germany. Maybe you have a warehouse in Germany or in Europe where you can ship to customers in that location. If you're using FBA, you can also use the FBA stock held in the UK to ship to Germany to customers over there, and Amazon will handle all of the customs and things for you. Or you can also send stock into a distribution centre in Germany. So we just use in Germany as an example. However, then there will be VAT implications because you're holding stock in that country. So there's a lot of things to think through, but selling in a different marketplace can be a great way to expand. What I would say, though, if you're thinking, well, actually, that sounds like something I might want to think about, do get some financial advice, because I can certainly help you with the practicalities of how to do this on Amazon. But I am not an expert in VAT. I'm not an expert in taxes. You need to work with somebody who is, to tell you what you need to register for, what you need to pay, how you'll be paying it, when you'll be paying it. That's all, of course, really, really important to think about. So I hope this has given you a few ideas of things that you might want to put on your plans for next year. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that have worked for businesses I've worked for this year. So I worked with someone over the summer where we updated her product listings, we updated the listing text, the A+ content, we merged her listings into variations because they were actually standalone despite being variations of the same thing. And we also updated her store. This has seen a really big uptake in sales without any ad spend. There's been no ad spend at all, which has been crazy. So her products were already selling. So it wasn't like we've gone from zero to, these amazing sales, but sales have certainly increased. Reasons, I think, is that obviously the listings have been optimized, so they're probably coming up higher in search. I think the new text and images is a bit more compelling. I think having the variations will have made a difference, because previously there were one or two products that were doing, so she has quite a range, and there were one or two that were selling really, really well. But by merging as variations, she's starting to see sales of products or SKUs that weren't selling before, some not at all and some not well. And I think it was just a case of visibility that the best selling products were the ones Amazon was showing, and particularly because she wasn't running ads. So Amazon in the search results was continuously showing the products that had been proven to sell, and because the listings weren't merged, customers couldn't see the other options. So I think that's made a real difference. So that's great. I also worked with a brand who expanded to sell their products in Germany. I'm going to be very honest, there were a couple of teething problems. We initially started out holding stock in the UK, and then German orders were fulfilled from there. That didn't actually work so well. So we decided to actually send stock into a distribution centre in Germany. And once we understood the shipping process, because that changed, now you can send them to the UK, to a UK fulfillment centre, who then send them on to Germany. Once that process got set up, that's gone really, really well. That marketplace is doing as well as the UK now, which is brilliant. It's also given us the opportunity to sell into Ireland, because Ireland is a new marketplace that came online earlier this year, and you can actually use the stock in Germany to fulfill orders in Ireland as well. So that's been really good, and plans for next year will be to think about maybe expanding into some of the other European marketplaces, because once you've got stock held in Europe, so for example, we've got stock in Germany, that stock could be used to fulfill orders in the Netherlands or France or somewhere else as well. So now that big hurdle is over, that big hurdle of getting stock over there, which was a big hurdle. It does present challenges. It does open up some more options for next year as well. And finally, I've worked with a brand who decided that due to returns on some of their products, they were offering just FBA. They've now decided to offer a mixture of FBA and FBM. So some of the products where he was getting a high number of returns, we've decided to switch to FBM. And I'll be honest, the product still has returns, but is a lot easier to manage because they're coming back to him. So that's a real positive. Also, the problem is if you have an FBA product that has a high number of returns, Amazon have actually started putting a high returns badge on the product listing page. I don't know if you've seen this, hopefully not on your own product, but you might have it done when you're shopping. Amazon actually flag a high number of customers who bought this product go on to return it, which isn't great. So because of that, we've had to make this change, because obviously if you're doing FBM, Amazon don't know how many people are well, I suppose they do know, but they're definitely not flagging it, so it makes a big difference. And I guess that was a change we made to address a specific problem, but it's still something that's had a positive impact, which is why I wanted to share it with you. So those are just some of the things that you might want to think about if you're looking forward to next year and you're thinking, I still want to grow on Amazon, but I'm not sure exactly what to do and how to go about it. So those are just some ideas. If you think there's something I've missed, if there's something you want to ask me about, but you think I haven't covered, you can always get in touch, Vicky@vickyweinberg.com. And if you want to have a chat about your business, where you are, and you're still not sure of all the things that I've spoken about. And of course there are others I haven't covered. If you're still thinking, actually, I don't know how to grow my sales on Amazon, I'm really not sure what to focus on next year, I just know that I do want to grow them, of course get in touch with me and we can spend some time together and we can look at this for your particular brand. Because of course all the advice I give on here has to be fairly generic, because I'm speaking to everyone. If you want advice that's just for you, please do get in touch and we can spend some time together and we can do that. And I will put a link to my one-to-one power hours in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here as always, and I will see you again next week for an exciting episode where I'm going to be answering some of the questions that I've got asked the most this year so far.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. Do remember that you can get the full back catalogue and lots of free resources on my website, vickyweinberg.com. Please do remember to rate and review this episode if you've enjoyed it, and also share it with a friend who you think might find it useful. Thank you again and see you next week. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Remember, if you'd like some more support, I have 10 Amazon Q&A sessions available this month. These are 1-hour calls where we help you tackle your biggest challenges, get you moving forward, and we can even use it for some Amazon training. They cost £149 and you can book via the link in the show notes.